Hey everybody, we left off yesterday with Mr. Ma telling the story of finding Gobi and getting her reunited with Dion. So let's see what happens today. Their host continued the story. Once we were home, we gave her some water and food. Then my son called the number on the poster. He also took a picture of the dog and sent it. He laughed. You said it wasn't her. Dion remembered how he had dismissed the message. He felt a sharp pang. What if that had been the end of it? He never would have found her or realized how close he had come. It was as if Mr. Ma could read his mind. The homeowner patted Dion on the knee. My son did not agree. It's just a bad picture, he said. He took another one, then he scanned in the poster. He sent the two of them together so you could see. This time you agreed. Except that I didn't, Dion thought. He felt so guilty about it. He still hadn't been convinced. It was Richard who had told Lu Xin to come get them and had made him go. If not for his friend, he still would have missed her. He looked at Richard, who just smiled and shook his head. Dion knew then that his friend would never tell anyone how close they had come to not following up on the photo. It would be up to Dion if he wanted to reveal that. Dion appreciated his friend sticking up for him, but he was big enough to admit his own mistakes. Besides, it had all worked out in the end. They were here, and so was Gobi. Well, I can't thank you enough, Dion said finally. Richard translated, and Mr. Ma bowed. So did his son. Dion set Gobi down on the couch beside him. Then he rose to his feet and shook hands with both men again. I think it's time we go back to the hotel, he told Richard and Lu Xin. With Gobi? She asked, and Richard translated. You can't. They won't let you. What? What do you mean? Both looked sorry as Richard translated again. No hotel in the city would ever let you bring a dog inside. It just isn't done here. Too many people around here feel that dogs are unclean, remember? If they thought a hotel was letting dogs in, no one would ever go there again. It's too big a risk. Dion frowned. Really? He asked. He had forgotten about the local attitude towards dogs. He was so used to the search team, who all loved dogs. But after all this, he continued. He looked down at Gobi. She had sniffed the couch, turned around, and then plopped down to sleep, just as she had done back in their tent during the race. After all she's been through? Richard shook his head. They're right, he confirmed. Maybe you can try and talk to the manager and see if he'll let you, but I doubt it. I stay in hotels all over China, and I've never seen a dog in one. Dion checked his watch. It was after 11 at night. How had it gotten so late? Suddenly he was exhausted. It had been a very busy and emotional day. Lu Xin rested a hand on his shoulder. We should ask Mr. Ma to keep her here tonight, she suggested gently. Then you can buy all the things you need for her, like a leash and a collar, food, bowls, and a bed, and collect her tomorrow. Dion sighed. He knew she was probably right. He had no idea what to do now that he had actually found Gobi. He had never thought this far ahead. He would have to talk to Kiki and start the process to bring Gobi home, but between here and there, he had no idea. He turned to Mr. Ma. I'm sorry to ask this after everything you've already done, he said, and then waited as Richard translated. But would you be willing to let her stay here for tonight? I need to make arrangements. I can come back and collect her tomorrow. Mr. Ma bowed. It would be our pleasure, he replied. His son nodded as well. That made Dion feel a little better. At least he knew Gobi would be somewhere safe tonight. He turned to Gobi again. She was sound asleep and snoring softly. Every so often a paw would twitch, just as it had at night during the race. Dion had always thought she was dreaming about running, maybe even about running with him. Dion knelt down and ruffled her fur gently, carefully not to wake her. I'm sorry, girl. I've got a lot to learn about being your dad, haven't I? Her ear twitched in response, but she stayed asleep. It was hard to leave Gobi there, and Dion kept turning around to glance back at her on the couch. A part of him feared that if he let her out of his sight now, he would never see her again. But he told himself he was being silly. She was safe now. The moths would take good care of her tonight, and he would be back to get her tomorrow. That was all. Just one night. Richard still had to practically push him out the door into the car. Dion barely remembered the ride back to the hotel or stumbling inside and upstairs to his room. As soon as he was there, he called Lucia. "We found her!" he yelled into the phone. As she picked up, she let out a shout of pure joy. Dion could tell from the sound that she was crying. That was okay. So was he. The next morning, Dion felt better than he had for a while. He had found Gobi and he had finally gotten some sleep. Things were definitely looking up. He and Richard met up for breakfast. Then they went shopping. They managed to find a store with a pet selection and bought Gobi a leash and a collar, some bowls, and some dog food. That would have to do for now. Dion also spoke to Kiki. She was thrilled that he had found Gobi and happy to know that she could finally start helping him get the little dog to Edinburgh. Not that it was going to be easy. "We need to get her to a vet," Kiki told him. "Nurali didn't take care of that, and so now we have to do it. Gobi will still have to have her medical certificate before we can get approval for her to fly." "How long will that take?" Dion asked. Maybe a week, maybe a month. It depends on how long we have to wait to see the vet." Dion felt a little of his good mood slip away. "A week or a month or more? Are you sure we have to fly?" he tried. "Why don't we drive?" "It's a 30-hour drive and no hotel will let you take her inside with you," she reminded him. "Would you really want to leave her in a car?" No. Dion did not want to do that. It wasn't even remotely safe. "Besides," Kiki added, "I have a contact at an airline who says she might be able to get Gobi on a flight earlier than we thought." That would be great, Dion agreed, but he still had to figure out what he and Gobi were going to do for the next week or month until they could see a vet. First, though, he had to figure out what to do with her tonight. After talking with Kiki, Dion went down to the lobby to speak to the hotel manager about letting Gobi stay in the room with him. "No," the manager said. Dion tried again. Maybe the manager hadn't understood him. After all, the man had been very helpful during the search. He had even let them use a meeting room for interviews. "Can the dog stay in my room?" Dion repeated. "She's so little." He held up his hand to show Gobi's approximate size. "It'll be good publicity for you." That was a real winner, he knew. The interview had already been all over television, local and national, and it had shown the name of the hotel for the location. Surely, if Dion was able to post that and Gobi were safe here, that would drum up even more business for them. But the manager still shook his head. "No," he repeated. "We don't ever let dogs stay in the hotel." Then he paused. "But I would be willing to help," he said softly. Great, Dion thought. The man wanted to be paid for helping. Well, it was worth it. But then the manager continued. "So perhaps the dog could stay in one of the rooms we use for staff training." That wasn't exactly what Dion had expected, but still, it was something. If the training room was anything like the hotel's meeting rooms, that would be just fine. "Can I see it?" Of course, the manager came out from behind the big front desk. Dion expected the man to lead him upstairs, down the hall, but instead he turned toward the front door. "What?" Then he paused and gestured for Dion to follow. Together they headed outside. They crossed the parking lot and walked toward a long, low building. Its front doors were swinging open and shut in the breeze. Dion thought maybe it was some sort of joke, but then the manager wasn't laughing as he led the way inside. The inside was even worse than the outside. There were bottles of cleaner here and there, along with broken furniture and other debris. The floor was covered in trash and puddles. There were barely any windows, and the door didn't actually shut. The manager pushed the door with his shoulder, and it protested as he shoved it into place. But even then, there was a large gap at the bottom. A dog Gobi's size would be able to slip out through the space. I can't keep her here. She'd run off. The manager shrugged. So, he said. Then he turned and walked away, back toward the hotel. Dion just watched him go. What are we going to do? Dion wondered out loud. They were in the car on the way back to Mr. Ma's. Lu Xin was driving again, and he and Richard were in the back. We don't have any place else to put her. Oh my goodness, where are they going to put this dog while Dion stays in this hotel? We'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. Have a great day.